You are
Let
all
us
set.
know. Let us know when we're live, please, Charlie.
You are all set.
Okay. Let's call the legislative committee on administrative rules to order. It's April 15th, 2021. First item on the agenda, minutes of the last meeting. Do we have those up, Charlene?
Everybody's received a copy of them,
Yep.
yes.
Is there a motion? Senator Benning is not here. Senator Bray.
I move approval of the minutes of our last meeting.
The minutes of the last meeting have been moved for approval. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay, and the minutes have been approved. We have one item on the agenda for today. It was postponed at our previous meeting to give consideration, further consideration for the members of LCAR. 20P15. It's up for consideration. The first witness, we have two witnesses on the agenda, Brendan Atwood and Meg McCarthy. Who would like to lead off, or will you be working as a team here?
Hi, good morning. Yep, we will be working as a team.
Okay, so while they traditionally take their seats, if we could run through and identify ourselves as quickly as possible. I'm Senator Mark McDonald. I'm the chair of LCAR, and senators work their way down the list.
Senator Chris Bray, Addison County.
Senator Joe Benning, Caledonia County.
Senator Ginny Lyons, Chittenden County.
Representative Trevor Squirrel, Underhill and Jericho.
Representative Seth Baumgartz, Manchester, Arlington, Sandgate, and Sunderland.
Representative Mark Kigley, Lowell, J, Westfield, Troy, and Eden.
And that we have everyone who is on at the meeting has identified.
Oh, hi, Representative Carol Odie from far new north end of Burlington.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your.
Okay, I just got on.
See on screen. So first witness, first item on the agenda, only item on the agenda. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to you and the committee members. Thanks again for inviting us to join you today. My name is Brendan Atwood. I'm a policy advisor for the Department of Health. And also here today from the department is Meg McCarthy, who is the compliance and enforcement advisor for the Environmental Health Division at the Department of Health. And with this filing, the department is proposing to amend the regulations for lead control. Mr. Chair, would it be helpful for me to provide an overview of the rule and the rulemaking again for the committee?
It would.
Okay, great. So the purpose of this rule is to protect the public health by reducing lead exposure for the public with specific precautions for children who are more vulnerable to lead hazards. So this rule provides the requirements for work practices, licensing, and training for lead-based paint activities, as well as renovation, repair, painting, and maintenance, or RRPM activities, in order to prevent the creation of lead hazards that cause lead poisoning. This rule applies to three categories of the public: those who perform or train individuals who perform RRPM or lead-based paint activities, property owners of pre-1978 target housing or child-occupied facilities, and homeowners when conducting RRPM or lead-based paint activities in their own private target housing residences. And so the major change made through this rulemaking is that all individuals licensed to work on pre-1978 buildings where lead paint will be disturbed will now be licensed and regulated by the Department of Health rather than by the EPA. And so while this marks a fairly significant change for the department, for the regulated community, these rules are essentially the same as what currently exists. And by bringing these rules under the purview of the department, we do anticipate the better protection of public health facilitated by greater outreach and education, as well as a more efficient and streamlined licensing process. In drafting the rule, the department worked with many stakeholders, including the EPA, Associated General Contractors of Vermont, the Vermont Housing Conservation Board, the Vermont Home Builders and Remodelers Association, lead paint abatement workers and trainers, lead paint inspectors, and licensed lead-based paint contractors. And so we have taken their input under advisement and then worked to address the concerns that they shared with the department. So that's a very brief overview of this rule and the rulemaking. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Everyone, I believe, have read the email from Senator Lyons. Senator Lyons, would you want to remind us all of that email?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The proposed rules, and I'm trying to remember if these rules include the change that was suggested, but regardless, the rule is consistent with legislative intent.
Okay. Representative Higley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for the opportunity to postpone this until today. I had the opportunity to talk with Mr. Atwood in regards to a lot of this. I had concerns earlier about the cost for these folks that do have to be certified in lead abatement, and was assured that wouldn't go up. But one of the concerns I do have is it was talked about that once this goes through and the process is taken from the EPA, there will needed to be new folks at the health department to administer this, and also a new IT system. So again, I guess I failed to ask Mr. Atwood last time if there's any indication of a kind of a joint fiscal note as far as what that future cost might be, and is there any reimbursement from the EPA after we take all this on as a state?
Thank you, Representative. So, and I may allow Meg to speak to this a little bit as well, but my understanding is there won't be any reimbursement from the EPA. However, the licensing fees that are currently paid to the EPA will go to the department. And I believe that we have conducted an analysis on this and feel confident that those costs, those licensing fees will cover the costs of the additional, IT system and folks needed at the department to execute this regulatory oversight. Meg, I don't know if you have anything that you want to add as someone who sits a little bit closer to this.
I think that's accurate what you said, Brendan, about the fees covering it, and I think
Forgive me, Miss. Just please identify yourself for the record.
I apologize. I'm Meg McCarthy, the Compliance and Enforcement Advisor for the Division of Environmental Health at the Vermont Health Department. And yeah, I agree with what Brendan said, that the fees cover most of the costs of these things. And I believe there is some additional grant money that EPA does provide when you gain authority from EPA. The details of that, I'd like to check with the program manager because she's more heavily involved in the money side, but I think that it's covered by those two sources.
Thank you. I still have a bit of a concern. Again, you talk about most of the costs. I understand, I support, the one-stop shop effort of the health department and so on, but it's a little concerning that we aren't a little more clear as to how many folks will be needed and what that IT system would cost. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the witnesses? Ms. McCarthy, do you have anything else to add to your testimony? That
I do not, thank you.
Okay, and Representative Odie, we can't see you, so I guess. So in the absence of a motion.
Yes, sorry, I'm fine with it. I couldn't find my button to unmute.
Welcome to the crowd. Senator Bray.
I do have a question for Mr. Atwood or Ms. McCarthy, and that is just for contractors currently. I just want to understand the baseline. I know we're under shifting regulation from it's a change of regulation, but for contractors currently, are their practices going to have to change? For instance, someone who, a contractor who's remodeling, they're going to take down an existing wall, and it's an older pre-1978 home. Do they already have to be certified or have a member of the crew that's certified for our, the lead abatement procedures?
Thank you, Senator. That is correct. So we worked with the EPA to ensure that these regulations mirrored the federal regulations. And other than a few very slight changes with regard to, in particular, a licensing category that we do not have per statute for a dust sampling technician, this rule is essentially the same as what currently exists for the EPA.
Okay. And my sense is out there in the world of contracting that many times some modest amount of demolition or repair goes on without some of the formal precautions being taken that the rule would prescribe. And how are you approaching that? So this is not a how well written is a rule question. This is a legislator who will be talking to contractors question. How are you going to do outreach, and to what degree is there enforcement?
Thank you, Senator. And Meg, I may allow you to speak to this as well. You may be able to help provide a little bit more information, but outreach and education will be a big component of the department's work over the course of the next year. We have established an effective date of 10/1/2022, and that's both to allow for the certification process to move forward with the EPA, and then also to provide the department with sufficient time to do outreach and education with contractors and other workers, to make sure that they're aware of these regulations and to work with them to help make sure that they can be compliant.
Okay.
Meg, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add.
No, that's what I would have said. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much. If no one else has further questions to help us as a committee, I would move acceptance of Rule 20-P015.
Thank you. The motion has been made, and I'm going to recognize Ms. Dexter Cooper, who sent us an email in the last few days with some, I believe she will tell us our technical changes, but I will let her speak for herself.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So for the record, Anthea Dexter Cooper from the Office of Legislative Counsel. I was just going to remind the committee that prior to this rule coming up 2 weeks ago, I had correspondence with Brendan Atwood, and they are proposing, and I should have given you a heads up, Brendan, that I was going to mention this, the slight tweak to section 1.0, the authority section, to include reference to, I think it's 1759 F, the one that is effective upon contingency. So there's just a slight change that they were proposing. And unless they are no longer proposing that, then everything I'm saying is irrelevant. But if they are proposing to make that small change, then I think the motion should reflect the approval with that slight change.
Thank you. We are proposing that. Thank you.
Senator Bray.
I would like to amend my proposal to approve Rule 20P015 as further amended.
In the memo from Ms. Dexter Cooper, yep, our counsel. So, is there any discussion of the motion before us? If not, all those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. And the rule has been approved, which wraps up our business for the day. But if you look at our agenda, and what is after the agenda, we're in for a long slog in the next couple of weeks. And does anybody have any questions or anything to bring up before we take a motion for adjournment? Hearing none?
No, Senator, I
No,
have.
beg your pardon. Senator Lyons, your hand was up in the trees.
It was. Thank you, Senator. My concern in the next couple of weeks, of course, is where we are in the session. and the pressures that are put on many of us, including those of us who are chairs. So I would ask that if there is a way to consolidate some of our work so that we're not meeting every week, or we can at least think about how to make it less stressful going forward, I think that would be very helpful. There's a lot of reading for us to do, and there's also a lot of debate and discussion to do while we're in committee. So I would just ask of you, Mr. Chair, to consider how we might lighten the load or make it less intense as we approach the end of session.
Your suggestion is most welcome. We'll speak with our attorney and Charlene, our boss, to see if we can consolidate these on time and priority to meet those goals.
In other words, Ginny, he's going to take it under advisement and then he'll deny your motion.
Heard that too.
Take a break.
I'm wondering if our council can tell us what's in the docket. I'm on a small screen this morning. I can't look at the other documents and our meeting at the same time. I don't know how much is coming our way.
So I just went and grabbed what I have printed out. The rule on rulemaking, which is one of the ones that you have scheduled for your next meeting, that's a re-upping of an emergency rule that you've already seen 2 times before. I don't think there are any changes there. So that one's pretty straightforward. There is not on, I think it's on the updated agenda that Charlene provided. There's another emergency rule that is also just a re-upping. So you've got those that are a little bit lighter. The third-party administrator rule, the other one that you have for April 22nd, is not terrible. It's pretty short in the grand scheme of things. So I think next week is not going to be a big slog. Where you're really hitting long ones is when you get to those 2 education rules. Those are big. I think that's going to take a full block of time. So I don't know if there would be interest in keeping them together or trying to shift them. You do have something scheduled every week coming up. I have not looked at the fish management regulation rule yet. That's the one that's scheduled for May 6th. And then the other thing that you have scheduled for May 6th is just an extension request having to do with the earned good time rule. And that one might end up being a little quirky in that I think it's S18 that's moving through the General Assembly is potentially going to amend the authority that directed that rule to be made. So it could be that another emergency rule is filed, similar to the one that already exists for the earned good time rule. So it could be that you get a little bit of a reprieve on a final rule to look at for earned good time, and that they're going to start over or request a longer extension than they've already requested. So I think next week, not terrible. I think the education ones are going to be a lot of reading and a big slog. And then it could be that it tapers off and lightens up a little bit after that. But I think that 429 is going to be a lot. And I see Charlene has made herself visible, so she might have more to offer.
I just wanted to point out that there's 2 requests for extensions of adoption deadline on the 6th. Just to bring that up.
For which rules?
You haven't reviewed them yet. It's a VOSHA review board rules of procedure and the earned good time rule.
Okay, and as Anthea pointed out, the earned good time rule is still in play in the legislature. And so, yep. So we have,
just so you all get used to
Benny,
it,
go ahead.
the word good has been eliminated from the language.
I keep seeing it in parentheses when they send things over.
Yeah, we're trying to move away from that image that we're giving inmates good time.
Well, would this be a good time for a motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
Yes.
Was that a motion,
So
Representative
move.
Bigley?
Yeah.
So move. Yes. I move we adjourn.
Good. Motion has been made to adjourn. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Thank you, and see you next week for a more routine meeting, and brace yourselves for the meetings thereafter. And we'll have an agenda by next meeting to meet the suggestions of Senator Lyons. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Benning, are you available
you.
to take a call from me